Greetings to you all, and thanks for joining us on the news on DBS TV. This November 5, 2020 will remain engraved in the minds of Cameroonians, and notably those of Kumba, Meme Division, as the day when the lifeless bodies of the 7 victims of the October 24 Kumba massacre were laid to rest. Assembled at the amusement park of the Kumba city, all dressed in black and in mourning, the bereaved families, sympathizers and city dwellers came out to wish a final farewell to the young Cameroonian souls who fell in the education field turned into a battlefield in Cameroon.
We have gathered here today in our numbers to bid the final farewell to our children, our cherished and innocent children who died as a result of the massacre that took place at the precisely. We had clergymen who have done their role that they are supposed to play. I remember one word that they resounded in the course of their preachings, that it is better to be part of a funeral than to be part of a feast. And we know and we hope that the messages that we have received from the clergymen is going to touch the various persons who deserve them. Those who are perpetrators of the act, we hope that they are going to be touched by the messages that we have had, and they have an opportunity to ask for forgiveness and then to come back to our community.
Also present at the funeral site was Prime Minister Joseph Dion Gute, representing the head of state. He arrived from Yaoundé on Wednesday, November 4, alongside a delegation to preside over the occasion. After the funeral service, the corpses were handed to the victims' families for burial. It was a heartbreaking moment for inconsolable mothers, fathers, sisters and brothers, as well as the whole community, to have to say goodbye too soon. Though the ceremony took place in relative calm and security, an incident was recorded at the site where one of the vehicles carrying the corpses caught fire, causing panic. However, no serious effects were noticed, though superstitious observers consider it to be a warning sign of eventualities. A cream of councillors from various subdivisions making up the Douala City Council Executive came together Thursday, November 5 for the 3rd semester session to evaluate the level of execution of the budget. Presided at by the City Mayor Mbassa Dine, he began by giving the general situation of the budgetary execution, which stands at 46.40% as of September 30th, a realization rate that this councillor appreciates given the fact that the present executive began working in the course of the year. Nevertheless, major tasks are awaiting these councillors, including tackling the drainage issue in the city, the issue of urban disorder, regularizing the phenomenon of anarchical construction in the city, amongst others. He raised the issue of growing insecurity in the country at large and in the city of Douala in particular, calling for maximum alert as the city borders one of the crisis-hit regions. In addition, these councillors were equally presented with orientations that will serve as guidelines for the preparation of the City Council budget for 2021, a budget that has to take into consideration current health crises, urban disorder, the fluvial nature of the city, and upcoming sporting events. The city mayor called on these councillors to strengthen relations with administrative authorities, forces of defense and security, and traditional rulers. The council session sat in the presence of the SDO for Vuri Division, Benjamin Mbutu. According to the International Communications Union statistics from 2017, Cameroon is at the 149th position of economies in the world when it comes to ICT exposure and competence. Similar figures from the World Bank in the same year states that over 23% of Cameroonians have internet access. This makes Cameroonians equally very involved in and affected by cybercrime, reason for the holding of a forum on cybersecurity and the fight against cybercrime organized by the Ministry of Post and Telecommunications in Yaoundé.
As we are more connected, we are more exposed to cyber crimes. So the role of a government is to protect the society. That's why you remember a few weeks ago we have organized a national campaign of awareness for responsible use of social media. This was awareness, but now we want to move to concrete actions.
Mainly involving internet fraud, cyber extortion, propagation of hate speech, amongst many others, many Cameroonians seem ignorant of the various cyber crimes and the danger they represent.
We have the National Agence of ICT and TIC, who is there to protect, to regulate our cyberspace. You also have all other administrative structures who are in charge of digital investigations. But the main problem is that population look like they are not enough aware of the danger of a cyberspace.
Whatever the case, ignorance is no excuse, as offenders could face the country's anti-cybercrime law.
We have a law. You know that if you spread false information through social media, you can go to jail and so on. But there is a gap between the legislation and the action you need to take so that you can go to a court and to have judicial decisions.
Nevertheless, the use of the internet remains a prime necessity for every growing economy today, the more the reason to protect our cyberspace and keep it safe.
If you did not secure the cyberspace, you cannot succeed in the digital transformation of a country. It's very important, and it's a matter of everybody, even you and I.
Prominent opposition Guillaume Soro, a former prime minister who was blocked from running in Ivory Coast presidential election, on Wednesday called the country's military to disobey President Alassane Ouattara after he was allowed to win a controversial third term. His comments places him on a direct crash course with his former mentor and align him more with two other opposition leaders still in Ivory Coast who have pledged to push ahead with a transitional government of their own after Saturday's election. Soro said, I quote, "I ask you to disobey the illegal orders and join the National Council of Transition. To the Defense and Security Forces, I ask you to look in the mirror, in soul and in conscience, and act to stop the killings. You must act to restore our constitution to its former glory." End. Guillaume Soro, who went on to become the president of the National Assembly, was unable to return to Ivory Coast from France earlier this year when criminal charges were brought against him that his supporters say were politically motivated to derail his candidacy. In central Mali, a forum on inter-community reconciliation opens this November 5, 2020 in Yono. Convened by government, many community actors as well as representatives of the Malian state will work for 4 days to find a solution to the problems that have plagued the area for several weeks. A case, for instance, will be that of Farabougou, a village surrounded for a month by jihadist fighters. Conflict between traditional Dozo hunters and the Fulani community will also be discussed. In recent days, several localities in the Nyono community have been experiencing sometimes deadly inter-community tensions. The circle that has suffered in the past terrorist attacks claimed by the support group for Islam and Muslims linked to Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. A mayor under anonymity who is taking part in the conference indicates that he will also talk on the thousands of displaced persons who have fled their homes because of the clashes. Security agents from all spectrums are also called upon to take part in the discussions, which will run until Sunday, November the 8th. A new voting system in senatorial elections in Madagascar has been welcomed by the electorate. Set to take place on December 11, the entire population this time is not called upon to the polls. Only around 12,000 mayors and their councillors are called upon to vote. On Wednesday, the Independent National Electoral Commission presented the new modalities of the election to potential candidates in the presence of non-governmental organizations and the funders of the poll, who are to be observers of the election. The new voting system of the ballot is the establishment in the 114 polling stations of the country, a single ballot box per division, and no longer one for each municipality. Another notable change is a single polling station will be at the capital instead of the usual 5. Senators have favorably welcomed the modifications while underlining major risk of this system for certain large polls which are still to be addressed. Campaign is due to start on November 11. Only 14 candidates will compete, the major opposition parties having decided to boycott the election following the decision taken by the presidential order to reduce the number of senators by 3.5. A follow-up in Ethiopia. The government has declared a 6-month state of emergency after the Prime Minister accused the Tigray opposition-led local government of attacking federal troops in trying to loot military assets. A statement issued by Abiy's office on Wednesday said the Federal Council of the Ministers made the declaration recognizing that illegal and violent activities within the national region state of Tigray are endangering the constitution and constitutional order. However, government officials have been tight-lipped about the size or the goal of the operation and whether there have been any casualties or arrests of TPLF officials. Internet and telephone lines were shut down in Tigray as of late Wednesday afternoon. Late month, the federal parliament ordered the country's treasury to halt direct budgetary support to the Tigray region after it held a banned regional election. Relations between Tigray and Abiy's government have been fraught since he took office in 2018 and sidelined the TPLF, which ruled the government in a coalition for nearly 3 decades. From all indication, the threat of the resumption of the war between the Polisario front with Morocco is possible. Polisario, which threatened few days ago to take up arms again, which it had deposited under the 1991 ceasefire agreement, responded quickly to the UN resolution which called on the resumption of consultations between Morocco and Algeria, the Polisario Front and Mauritania. It stated that it will continue to intensify the national liberation struggle in the face of the failure of the United Nations to ensure the implementation of the mandate of its mission for the referendum in Western Sahara. On October 30, a United Nations Security Council meeting adopted a resolution renewing the mandate of its peacekeeping mission for 1 year. The Moroccan Foreign Affairs Ministry says There are now over 15 foreign missions in Western Sahara, with the latest being that of the United Arab Emirates. Analysts think it is a plus for the country, which controls over 80% in the decades-long Western Sahara conflict, and to preserving peace in the region. Brazilian prosecutors are charging President Jair Bolsonaro's son Flaviu with corruption during his tenure as a state lawmaker. Rio de Janeiro state prosecutors accuse Flaviu Bolsonaro of embezzlement, money laundering, and the operating in a criminal enterprise from 2007 to 2018, when he allegedly took money from his staffers' salaries when he was a Rio de Janeiro state lawmaker. The charges are the first to be brought in a series of investigations involving the president's family and could prove damaging for the far-right leader who ran on an anti-corruption platform. 16 other people, including his driver, Fabricio Queiroz, are implicated in the alleged crime. Investigations reportedly began their probe into the money fraud scheme in 2018 when auditors spotted unusual transfers of hundreds of thousands of dollars into an account held by Queiroz. And we end it here for today in Belarus, where the EU has launched a procedure to sanction Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko, his son Viktor, and 13 others held responsible for a post-election crackdown in the former Soviet state, diplomatic sources in Brussels said. The green light to ban visas and freeze the assets of Lukashenko and the 14 others was given by envoys from the European Union's 27 member states and should be confirmed in the bloc's official journal by Friday. The bloc has already imposed travel bans and asset freezes on 40 Lukashenko allies for rigging an election in August that returned him to power. The bloc had held back from penalizing Alexander Lukashenko, hoping to persuade him to engage in dialogue with opposition forces to resolve the crisis. However, this hope was not fulfilled, and in mid-October, EU foreign ministers gave the go-ahead in principle to take action against the leader. That marks the end of today's edition of the news on DBS TV. Thank you for watching, and do well to stay with us for more of our programs. Good night.